One of the stories I get asked to share quite a lot is how did I start my first business? Now, some of you may know, I dropped out of school at 16. I had no qualifications. I certainly didn't have any money or access to traditional business building resources like capital or lines of credit or good ideas or any of that stuff that can sometimes be in people's favor. Now, I was born on a low-cost housing estate in the middle of a place called Leicester in England. And so, it doesn't get much lower than that in terms of stacking the deck against you to start a business. And I don't say that to sound impressive. I say it really just to share with you that if I can do it from there, you can do it from pretty much anywhere. And there's many, many people that started with far, far less than I did and went on to create far more success than I have. So never use that as an excuse. But how did I start? I dropped out of school at 16 and I worked for my father for a short while. I don't recommend that. He had his own little business. It was a scrapyard and I was being paid far less than I wanted, which is a lesson. You should never work for your parents because they don't pay you enough. But I had this belief system and I said to my dad, I said, listen, I'm leaving at the end of the week. He said, what are you getting into? I said, well, I don't know, but I have a belief that says if you jump in the deep end, you can only swim. I still have that belief today. And he paid me my week's wages, which was £40, about $60. And I paid my mum what I owed her for rent, for board. I paid my friend, some money, and I had my last £20 left to my name. And I thought, I know, I'll start selling toys on what we call car boot sales or flea markets. And I had a little Mini at the time, and this was the days before Minis were cool. And what I did was I went to a wholesaler, and I walked in, and I started walking up and down the aisles, pretending that I owned the place. And the guy came up and said, excuse me, do you have a trade account with us, sir? And I said, no, I don't. But, I will soon. He said, what do you mean? I says, well, I'm a market trader. I specialize in toys. I have stalls at all of these different places. And what I was actually doing at the time was I was telling the truth in advance. Now, that was my version of it at the time. But I said, somebody recommended you, but I've been using so-and-so, and I mentioned the next one down in the yellow pages. And he says, oh, certainly, would you like an account? I was like, let's do it. So I looked around, and I bought £15 worth of toys, and I went to a car boot sale. I couldn't afford a table. My mum had given me a blanket, and I put a blanket on the floor in the middle of this field. I put my toys on, and I tried to sell them. But I sold them all for £25. So I went back the next day, and I bought £25 of the toys. I went and I put my £5 through the window for the car boot sale. And from there, I sold it again and I built up and up over about 5 or 6 weeks until I got enough to just cover a normal market stall. And then I started doing markets and then Sunday markets. And then I got into what was called toy parties. I'd heard of Tupperware parties, but my mum suggested do toy parties. And this is before desktop publishing, so I used to drive around the school gates at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the mothers were waiting to collect the kids, and I'd hand out these leaflets. But I didn't have any fancy software. I was cutting letters out of newspapers to stick on, hold a toy party, earn extra money. It was like a ransom note. But by October, I left my dad in June, and by October I'd made my first 1,000. And I was so chuffed because I'd made it and not earned it. And there's a big difference. From there, you start to understand that nobody can take your toolbox away. If you go out and you start something, anything, don't be disheartened. Just keep going. There's always a way, my friends. And if I can start from nothing and thousands and millions of people have started with nothing, you can start with nothing. You don't need money to start a business.